Welcome to the Hope Sports Podcast, where we believe that sport can give you the freedom to be your best. All too often, the fear of failure takes the fun out of the game, and we're here to help you discover real joy and freedom to compete your best. I'm your host, Olympic gold medalist Laura Wilkinson, and I cannot wait for today's conversation. I'm so excited to have Canadian Olympic hurdler Sarah Wells joining us. She shares about how she stumbled into hurdles, her fast track to national competition, and how she turned around from a fracture in her femur to make the Olympic team in only 8 months. But that's not even the best part of her journey. It's how passionately she champions others to believe in their dreams, even when they don't come true. Okay, I can't wait any longer. Let's dive on in. Sarah Wells, welcome to the Hope Sports Podcast. I'm so excited to have you on today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Okay, for those of us that may not know some of your background, can you tell us a little bit how you got into sports? Because you didn't actually get into track and field until you were a little bit older.
Yeah, so I didn't even find the sport of track and field till high school, and it kind of came about serendipitously. I wanted to be a sporty person. Like I had entered into high school, and I was like, okay, like I'm going to pick a sport. And originally, when I got to high school, all of the cool girls were dancers. And so I was like, okay, well, I better become a dancer. Mind you, no regard for the actual reality of my skill ability. That was horrendous in the sport of dance. And so I took an elective dance class in grade 9. And I hoped that, this would be my path to my ticket to cool, and ended up being absolutely awful. My teacher was like, don't suggest you take a dance class again. And so I then was like, okay, well, if it's not dance, then maybe it's basketball. Went up for basketball team, got cut. And I said, okay, fine, maybe volleyball, got cut. Badminton, field hockey, ice hockey, like could not get on a damn team. Sorry, am I allowed to say
that? We can bleep things out.
So I ended up kind of, through the months, end up like I'm on 0 teams. And in gym class, I had a teacher come up to me and they were like, well, why don't you go up for the track team? Like, I think you have what it takes. And I was like, no, like I've already gone through a bunch of that. That sounds terrible. I've been cut from every team, and ended up going out for the team and finding hurdles. And hurdles made running fun for me. And I happened to actually be pretty good for the first time in my entire first year of high school. And within a few months, ended up being ranked, one of the top in the country, and had an opportunity to win the national championships like less than a year later. So it was all pretty wild. And fortunately, being told I wasn't good at something in dance class was potentially the best thing that ever happened to me. Because had I have been pursuing that dance dream, I might not have ever found track and field or hurdles, and might not have never been an Olympic athlete.
Man, that's amazing. I mean, just a few months later, you're like winning nationals. I mean, that's crazy. I guess, what was that kind of skyrocket like? You know what I mean? From 0 to 60 and so fast. What was that experience like?
Certainly a whirlwind. I think I didn't even recognize in myself the ability I truly had. Like, thanks to the high school teacher that saw me, and then the coach that I was working with during high school happened to be a varsity coach at the University of Toronto, as well as my high school teacher. So he would kind of take me after school, drive me down to the city. I would train with the varsity team. And I kind of just recognized, what it took to be great. Because these varsity athletes that were already, definitely a few steps ahead of where I had been at that point in my career, I just kind of was following their lead. And I don't think I understood, the talent that I had inside, because I was surrounded by these other really high performing athletes, and thought this is just the way everyone is. So thanks to having those people believe me, having this bar set in front of me, I think it was great to be very ignorant to my ability during that time, because it didn't seem too fast or too soon, and I didn't feel suddenly afraid or feel pressure, because I just felt like one of many. And I think, thanks to that teacher who believed in me, I slowly started to see my own potential over time. And I wouldn't even say within that first year. I think at that point, I honestly just thought you climb the ladder this quickly. That's simply just what happens to people when you start training. But I think after recognizing a few races, being okay, I'm actually kind of good at this, I wanted to just see what else was possible. It wasn't about, okay, now that I recognize that I'm good, I'm going to be an Olympian in this. It was more, okay, well, can I win nationals? Okay, well, can I break the Canadian youth record? Can I be in the final at the World Junior Championships? Can I get a scholarship? Like, what are those other things that are the milestones along the way? And only much, much later did I ever consider the Olympics like on my radar.
Oh, that's so fun. And I love how like the two teacher comparison, like one that told you to quit and you're terrible and don't do this, and then one that believed in you and carted you off to practice to like make sure you were going to be good. Like how powerful that is, what people speak into your lives, but then makes you think about what you tell others too, right? Yeah. So cool.
No, it's true. And I will say, like, in that teacher's defense, the dance teacher who told me not to do a dance class again, it's like, I don't even think that she was not believing me or not supporting me. She was just helping guide me towards the path that was appropriate for me. And I think so often we can assume that there's like one direction, one path to get to the goal that we desire. And that's so not the case. Like, it's going to be different for everyone. And so she actually was supporting me the whole time. It was simply, she was just helping guide me what was best for me when I thought, I was like, no, this is the way to cool.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad she recognized beyond cool. That's good. That's
good. Me too.
Well, so I guess what really made you fall in love with running, with hurdles specifically? Like, how did you know it was going to be your jam?
So that high school coach who took me under his wing, his name is Dave Hunt. And he actually stayed my high school, or he actually stayed my coach all the way up for the next 9 years till we made the Olympics together, which is pretty unheard of. And he was a hurdler back in his day, and he loved coaching hurdles. And so I kind of fell into hurdles because he really wanted me to do hurdles. And within my first few races, I had the rhythm down in hurdles. I'm sure as people may have seen on TV, there's a rhythm to it. In sprint hurdles, which is the ones down the straightaway when the hurdles are like all lined up, you hurdle 1, 2, 3, hurdle 1, 2, 3. In 400-meter hurdles, which is my event, when you do one big lap around the track, the hurdles are the same distance apart. They're 35 meters apart. But over time, as you're running 400 meters, you get pretty tired. So your stride length starts to shorten. So there's a certain like rhythm to it. So you might be 16 strides for the first 5 hurdles, then maybe 17 strides for the next 3, and then 18 strides for the final 2. And as you're going through those stride length, it can be really challenging to like measure, when do I take off? Like, I'm getting tired. Should I try to fight for one more, or do I like kind of just like lay off and add an extra step? And so I kind of, apparently, says my original coach, I had almost just like an innate instinct to know how to do that. And usually hurdlers have a favorite leg. Like, you have a distinct leg that is your hurdle leg. And my coach kind of told me like, no, you're going to be a hurdler who can do both legs. And so he had me hurdle an entire season of sprint hurdles, though, that like 1, 2, 3 hurdle, 1, 2, 3 hurdle, with my bad leg. And I'm using bunny ears. I know that people can't see me, but my bad leg. And so it kind of made me ambidextrous a little bit in my ability to hurdle, because I had this ability to hurdle with both legs kind of fluidly, plus was able to just kind of gauge and read when I should take off for the hurdle. He was just kind of like, no, hurdles will be your event. Like, there's too much here showing me that this should be your event. Plus, for me, just from like a distraction perspective, I loved the fact that hurdles made running fun. Like, it wasn't about like gun goes off and then you're like, oh my gosh, so long to go and I'm hurting and it is painful and I don't want to. Instead, you're thinking like, okay, this leg, okay, now attack, now think this word and drive here. And it just made everything more fun.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, I love that. I love that. Now, I mean, at what point did you actually, I know you said your goals were like, okay, I'm going to make this team. Now I'm going to try and make this team. Like, at what point did you realize that you could actually aim for the Olympics?
So I ended up staying with that same high school teacher who was my coach for 9 years. And so he was the coach at University of Toronto. I went and trained and did school at University of Toronto. And there was another athlete there, Massimo Bertocchi was his name, and he's a decathlete, and he competed at the 2008 Olympics. And I had seen him training for years, watched him, get better, and he wasn't drinking any lime green beverages, secret potions, he was simply working hard. And I saw him qualify for the Olympics in 2008, and we had trained relatively closely simply because we were some of like the leaders in our training group and had some potential that the coach just saw in us. And so I think I saw myself in him when he qualified, and I thought, okay, like, this is just about hard work and like committing to the goal and believing in yourself enough to be able to do that. And so I think only after he qualified, he kind of like showed me the way a little bit. And I actually don't even know if I've ever really said this to him. I feel like I should tell him before this goes out. But yeah, that I think he really planted the seed that it was possible for me. And 4 years later, I made the Olympics in 2012. So yeah, really like wasn't a childhood dream of mine. It wasn't like this thing I thought I could always do. It was only 4 years before that it really became like a reality.
I love that. I love that. So then you started winning national titles and everything was looking great. And then you were sidelined for a stress fracture in your femur. I can't even imagine how painful that must have been. Like, walk us through all that.
Yeah. So as I said, 2008, I suddenly planted the seed in my head of like, okay, I'm going to make the Olympics in 4 years. And I start telling people that, my friends and family, and I start missing out on family gatherings and vacations and time with friends because I say like, no, can't come. I'm going to the Olympics. Like, no, I'm going to miss that. I'm going to the Olympics. Like, no, going home early. I'm going to the Olympics. And the year before the Olympics, I'm at a training camp and I'm doing like 2-day workouts, like not just completing these workouts, like crushing these workouts. And I have to crush the workouts because I have this little thermometer of stress in the back of my brain, constantly reminding me like the Olympics are coming. You better be fast. You better be training. And I'm doing everything I can. Morning after the biggest workout of the week, get out of bed. I like step down and I get this like searing pain at my leg. And at first I was like, okay, well, that's was super strange because I don't remember feeling anything like tweak in practice yesterday. Like that means that this must be minor because there was no like point of impact or like point of pain. So it must just be something small. It'll go away in a few days. Well, it doesn't. And so after days of just simply not understanding, I fly home from that training camp and I went to see a special sports medicine doctor. We did an MRI, which was like a fancy x-ray, and ended up finding that it was not soft tissue, wasn't muscular, wasn't like something small that I had hoped. Instead, I had developed a stress fracture in my femur. And so stress fracture is a deterioration of your bone from the inside out that eventually leads to a crack. And in that moment, the doctor's like looking at me. I'm sitting on the doctor's table and I'm just kind of like, well, what does that even mean? Like the only thing I've ever seen of stress fractures in my sport is people will get them in their feet a lot. And they put on that walking boot cast and they sit out for 6 weeks and they come back and they're usually good. But this is in my femur. So that's the biggest bone in your body. And so I asked him like, well, what's that protocol then? Like, should I be back in 6 weeks? Like, that's not that big of a deal. Like, that's not great, but that's not terrible. And he's like, no. He's like, you're sitting out for at least 3 months. And at this point in my career, I had never touched Olympic standard before. I was absolutely heartbroken to hear 3 months. And he had said like, this isn't just no running, Sarah. Like this is no impact, no standing, no walking, nothing. This meant like I couldn't do anything. I couldn't walk down the street to go hang out with friends. I couldn't walk to the grocery store. I couldn't do anything that was impact or weight bearing. And so it just left me way too much time to think, where I then began to question my self-worth and who was I without this goal? Would my friends still like me? Would people still respect me? Would anyone listen to what I have to say? And every single night I would essentially not fall asleep until I had cried myself to a point of exhaustion that I would just simply like fall into sleep.
Oh my goodness.
And I think as athletes, we definitely, so much of our lives is revolved around like our training day and our training schedule. And it's obviously a huge chunk of our identity. And so this whole chunk, this goal I've been, keeping my eye on for years now, it's just suddenly like, I feel like I'm watching it slip away. And I truthfully, I think went into a state of like mild depression where everything would be riding on how my leg felt that day. If I felt a pinch, like I wouldn't be able to I'd be uncontrollable crying all day. Or, if it felt somewhat good that day, I'd be on this huge high thinking that I'm going to definitely be like back to training next week. And then I would get that pain again. And then I would be back off the edge of the cliff and just, it was just such a roller coaster. And so week after week, month after month, I'm just thinking like, should I quit? Do I give up? Like I have no signs showing me that I'm taking any steps towards this goal. So what am I doing? And eventually, 1 month turns into 2 and 2 months turns into 3. And I saw myself truly just like getting back up. every single day. I would go to physio. I'd try to stay fit. I'd try to stay motivated. And as exhausting as it was, and as much as I wanted to give up, like I never did. And so once I made it through those 3 months, I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe it. I've done it. Like I've made it through, and like I'm so proud of myself. And I go to my doctor's appointment that had been planned for months, and I'm like so excited. I'm like, okay, I put in the time. Like, can I go? Can I train? Is it healed? He pulls up the new scan and he looks at it. He's like, Sarah, I don't know how to tell you this, but like the bone's still not healed. You got to come back in another month. And I'm like, no, like I can't. I physically and emotionally like don't feel like I can keep going. And he's just like, there's nothing I can do. Like we can't let you run to the point of like breaking your leg in half. Like there's something called a fat embolism, where if you break your leg in half, you can release something from your bone marrow, it can instantly stop your heart.
Oh my goodness.
And so, yeah. So I end up, sitting out another month, and again, crying myself to sleep, but then choosing to get back up every morning, try to stay fit, try to stay motivated. Eventually 1 week turns into 2, turns into 3, turns into 4. The month I've made it through. And again, I think, okay, now I've done it. I've made it through this time. Go back to see the doctor. I'm like, okay, can I go? Can I train? Is it healed? And he's like, sorry, Sarah, the bone's actually still not healed. Come back in another month.
Oh, it's
and
devastating.
So, yeah, heartbreaking. And this ends up going on for not just 5, not 6, not 7, not 8, but 9 months. And so it was just like, every single time I climbed to the top of this mountain, think I'm going to be cleared, only to fall off the edge of the cliff on the other side. And it was just so, so exhausting. But after making it through those 9 months, I realized that like I had such a strength inside of me that I would have never recognized without that experience. And I knew that now heading into 2012, I was now more motivated, more inspired than anyone. And the day I got cleared to run was October 4th, 2011, and Olympic trials were July 1st, 2012. So this left me with 8 months to get back to who I was and then improve upon that. And in 8 months, it's not enough time to recover from such a massive injury like that. And then, as I mentioned, I had never touched Olympic standard before. So in that 8 months, I not only had to get back to who I was, but then I had to improve an entire second in order to qualify. And in the sport of track and field, a second is like an eternity. Yeah. Anyone who's watched the Olympics knows that like a quarter of a second can be a big deal. So, I'm cleared to run, and everyone around me reminds me to like remain realistic, that this is already a pretty impossible goal. And now I've made it, extremely challenging on myself by just sitting around for 9 months. And what I chose to do was, after my very first practice back, October 4th, 2011, I left the track after my workout was done and I went to the tattoo parlor, and I ended up getting the word believe tattooed onto my wrist. And I said, when I make the Olympic Games, I will put the Olympic rings underneath here. Super bold move.
I love it though. I love it.
Thanks. I got the word believe tattooed on my wrist, and I knew the next 8 months were going to be challenging. They were going to test me, and I wanted to have a word that would remind me of all of the obstacles I had already overcome, the strength I now saw in myself, so that I could look down at that and have all of those moments kind of like encompassed into this one like glance, and be able to keep driving forward when I knew there were going to be moments I wanted to give up. And so set out, start training, and another obstacle kind of came along where 3 weeks in, I ended up tearing a hernia in my inguinal ligament. I have to go in for surgery, recover from that. I've already tattooed believe onto my wrist. And by the time I get back, it was December 16th, 2011. Olympic trials were still July 1st, 2012. And so I had 6 months to get back to who I was and then improve upon that. And, like step by step, inch by inch, insert cliche line here, I ended up 6 months later winning Olympic trials, hitting Olympic standard, running that time, like improving by an entire second, like I said, and going to the Olympic Games and not just finishing as an Olympian, but then actually making it through a second round and being an Olympic semi-finalist and one of the youngest competitors in the field. and came home and put the Olympic rings underneath that belief exactly where I said I would.
Oh, I love it. Oh my gosh, that's so great. I love that you encompassed everything into this one word of affirmation that you could just look down and see and remind yourself like anytime you needed to. It's so cool. At Hope Sports, we know that you want to be the best athlete that you can be. And in order to do that, you train hard and dedicate yourself to performing at your peak. But sometimes it can feel monotonous. Every day has a similar routine, and when you win, well, no victory feels as good as a loss feels bad. It doesn't have to be this way. We believe athletes can compete at their full potential and reach their dreams while feeling lasting satisfaction from their accomplishments. We understand what it's like when you've dedicated your life to something, but you feel like you're never living up to people's expectations and you don't feel satisfied with your achievements. Hundreds of athletes have told us that they've discovered how to compete at their best while finding lasting fulfillment in their achievements during our interactive international service trips. Our next trip is coming up June 7th through 10th in Rosarito, Mexico, and we want you to be there. It's so easy to get involved. Just go to hopesports.org, sign up for the June 7th through 10th home build, and build hope for a family and win like never before. So sign up today. It could be the key you need to find success in your career. I have to back up though, like the day after day grind and the highs and lows in that 9 months, like what was it that made you wake up after crying yourself to sleep every morning to get back up and do it? Was it just kind of the idea of maybe, or were you already building that belief? Like, or was there some other purpose? Like, what was it you think that got you up in the mornings to keep going?
I think it really was kind of that maybe, that kind of like, at night, everything seems so dark and unlikely. And then I'd wake up in the morning and say like, but you don't have all the pieces. Like you really don't know. And so it just seemed worth it to me to put myself in the position to at least try. And something that, the name of my keynote, or like the mission of my keynote presentation that I give, all around North America now, is that you don't build self-belief through achievements, you build self-belief through action. And I think that I didn't always necessarily like, people are like, oh, you must have just always believed you could become an Olympian. And it's like, I actually didn't because so many of those nights, like I was like, there's no way, I definitely can't. Like that doubt is just so much louder than that voice of positive affirmation. And so I think I just started to slowly form something like belief taking action. And I think that action was sparked by like just not letting the circumstances define my outcome, just not having all of the pieces known yet, which meant there was still hope. And I think holding on to that, like just tiny ounce of hope, is what kind of drew me out of the bed every single day.
Hope is so powerful. I love that belief is based on like the actions and the doing. Like that's so cool. Oh, I love that. So what was it like to finally get to the Olympics? You know what I mean? That after all you had been through, that dream is realized. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, actually, it's a pretty funny moment. I remember like crossing the finish line. Obviously, 400-meter hurdles is said to be one of the worst events in track and field simply because like you are sprinting as fast as you can for like too long. And I crossed the finish line. My body is flooded with lactic acid. I like don't know if I can stand up, or if I'm going to like throw up on someone's shoes, if I'm going to die or be alive, who knows? And my siblings were in the stands that day. And so they came like running down. Like obviously they understood the importance of this moment. They knew the time I needed to run. They understood if I won that it was for sure I was going. And so, I win, I hit the time, they see it all happen, and they just like sprint down from where they were standing or where they're watching. And I had just kind of crawled off to the side of the track, like couldn't stand up, and end up just like laying on my back in this grass patch beside the stands off to the side of the track. And my siblings are hanging over the fence, looking down at me, being like, oh my God, you did it. Oh my God. And they're freaking out. And I'm just looking up at them, just being like, this is the best day of my whole life. This is the best day of my whole life. And I just like, my eyes are closed. Like I said, I don't know if I'm going to be sick or what's happening in the world, but I just know that like the feeling, like nothing has been, everything seems worth it in that moment. And it truly was like, one of the best days of my whole life. And I really feel like I owe that to my ability to like be courageous enough to 8 months before that really believe in me. And it's scary. It's really, really scary to say your goals out loud and believe in yourself so strongly that you're willing to tell people about it. And by no means do I think people need to like tattoo their goals onto their wrist, but I often challenge people to think about what is their word or their phrase or their quote that reminds them of all of the obstacles they've already overcome, that reminds them of the strength that they've seen themselves have. Because I truthfully think by them writing that down will trigger them to start building that kind of relationship with that goal. It'll be a lot less scary the more times you say it out loud. It'll be a lot less scary the more times you tell people about it. And it'll probably be a much more enjoyable journey when you have people there supporting you that now understand the severity of your goal or how they can help you get there. And I know for me, like, by saying my goal as scary as it was, by saying it out loud and including my family and my friends and my training partners in this goal that was potentially, not going to happen. Well, then when it did happen, like, nothing was more fulfilling than sharing that moment with them. So it's just pretty surreal.
Oh, amen, sister. Preach that message. I love it. I love it. Okay, so you went on the following year, still healthy, earned a University Games medal, and then the stress fracture came back. I mean, what? Yeah, just tell us about that.
Yeah, you overcome one obstacle, you might pour in all of your resources and your heart and soul into that, and you think you've done it. You've hit the status that you wanted. You get the goal, and you assume that, at least in that category, after becoming an Olympian, I assumed, okay, well, now I'll make less athletic mistakes. Like, I won't get injured because I'll be smart enough not to train when I shouldn't. And I won't overtrain, and I'll be smarter about nutrition and all these things. Like, I'm an Olympian now. So that means that the hardest obstacles in that world are over, right? And only to find out that there's more mistakes to learn from. And I think I started to expect a certain level from myself every single day, and I didn't allow myself to have a down day or need to call on people for help, because I suddenly think, like, Sarah Wells, the Olympian, needs to show up every day and needs to train harder than everyone and needs to be the person. And I had no compassion for myself in a mental and physical wellness, I think, silo. And so the stress fracture did come back. And I think it was because I transferred programs and I didn't treat my body well. And to come back, have to be faced with the whole process all over again was just annoying, because I felt like I had done the thing. I had learned the mistake, or learned from the mistake, and simply just like knew the grind, knew how long it was going to take to come back from it again, and remembered the pain of, like, after sitting out for so long, how much harder it is for your body to relearn everything. And so it was a really big challenge mentally, but ended up coming back from that and had an amazing support system around me that helped me then come back stronger. I tied my personal best that very next year again, and won a silver medal at the Pan Am Games. And so I kind of like showed myself again, like, I believe in me. Like, if anyone can do this, it's me. Like, when I choose to get back up and I choose to, like, believe in myself so strongly, like, I can make it happen. And so after winning that medal in 2015, heading into 2016, I kind of felt like, okay, well, now that I've won a medal on the international stage, I'm ready to win a medal at the 2016 Olympics. And that's going to be my year. And I'm going to go out with a bang, and I'm going to retire, and I'm going to have a medal in my hands, and it's going to be awesome. It's the perfect plan.
It is the perfect plan.
Only to kind of have that same, because I'm not sure that I quite learned lesson when the stress fracture came back. And I didn't let myself have a down moment. And I thought that, like, Sarah Wells, the Olympian, had to be this thing, and had a certain expectation. Well, then that fear and that, like, anxiety about being that person only was amplified after I won that medal at Pan Am's, because now heading into 2016, I felt like, okay, well, now people are expecting me to win a medal. Whether they felt that way or not, that's what I thought. And we all tell ourselves stories that are likely untrue of the way others feel or think about us. And for some reason, we don't recognize it. And so heading into 2016, I was in the best shape of my life. I was having an incredible start to my outdoor season in just training. And about 2 weeks before I was about to open up my season, and it was about 2 months out from the 2016 Olympic trials, I had a workout on a Tuesday. And on that Tuesday, I ran so fast and it was awesome. And I went to bed that night thinking dang, I'm good. But the Wednesday I woke up, I had another really big workout planned. And my hamstrings, the muscle in the back of my leg, they were super tight because I'd just gone essentially the fastest I had ever gone the day before. And the Wednesday, though, I see this plan and this workout, and I'm like, okay, well, it doesn't matter if they're tight because I have this workout planned and I can't miss a workout, because if I miss a workout, I'm not doing everything I can. I'm not doing everything I can. Then I won't make the Olympics. If I don't make the Olympics, then I won't win a medal. If I don't win a medal, I'll let everyone down. And talk myself into this, spiral. And so I go to work out and I don't tell my coach about my hamstrings really. And I start the workout. And about halfway through, my coach, he sees me and he's like, Sarah, you look a bit tired today. Let's just shut it down here. I was like, no, don't make me stop. And try to come up with some type of reason why I should keep going. So I'm like, oh, let's play a fun game. And I'm like, if I run the next interval slower, I'll stop. But if I run the next interval the same or better, then you have to let me keep going. So he's like, okay, crazy lady. No one asked for more running. Go ahead. And so I start the interval and I'm now working for it because I have to run the same or better in order to keep going. And about 30 meters away from the finish line, I am so close to almost being done. All of a sudden, if you can imagine what it feels like to have a Ziploc bag full of air, tightly sealed, placed in the back of your leg, and then have someone just stomp on it. That's what it felt like when I face planted to the floor, ripped an inch tear in my hamstring. And 4 years after I thought I had already overcome the biggest obstacle in my career, I learned another hard lesson. And so 2 months before the 2016 Olympic trials, I'm in almost the exact same position that I was in 4 years previous, heading into Olympic trials, where I'm injured and I'm scared and I'm not going to make it. And, I'm riddled with self-doubt and I'm so afraid. And it was just crazy to me because we all, achieve a certain level of success and we instantly assume that's our new baseline, that nothing except that or better will be seen as success. And I think only that time did I truthfully learn the lesson of it's okay to have an off day. It's okay to not be on all the time. It's okay to not be the leader sometimes and need to ask for help or need to ask for a day off. And I needed, I guess, that severe of a moment for me to really, really recognize that. Because I tear the hamstring. I look down at my belief on my wrist and I'm kind of just nope, this isn't holding me down. If anyone can do this, it's me. I, was in a similar position and I made it happen. So this time I can do that again. And I get my hamstring back to about 90%. But by the time the 2016 Olympic trials rolls around, I end up, you'd get top 3 at the Olympic trials in order to qualify. And at 90%, I thought, okay, well, I can at least get top 3. That's a possibility for me. And I set out on the race and I'm going so hard to try to make this happen. And the announcer over the PA system, in the stadium, is and leading the charge there, Sarah Wells. I'm shut up, announcer. I cannot deal with this right now. But I'm winning the race. And as we come into the final straightaway, other people start coming into my vision. And eventually, by the time we get to that finish line, I finish in 4th. And I missed qualifying after what I thought was about to be my golden, perfect story, retirement year that ends perfectly. And it was just devastating. And I remember when we left the track that day, we pulled into the driveway of the house I was staying at, and I couldn't go into the house because I felt like the second I went into the house, that meant it was over. The pursuit was done. There wasn't one more good workout, one more good sleep, one more good physiotherapy session. It was just it. And so I just kind of opened the car door and fell onto the driveway and laid in fetal position and just cried and cried because it all felt like such a waste. And for 4 years, I'd been known as Sarah Wells the Olympian. And now Sarah Wells the Olympian doesn't make the Olympics. And so I just felt like such a fool, like such a failure, so defeated, so deflated, and truthfully, like a waste. But fortunately, time heals a lot of things. And I've been so lucky to now kind of like travel North America and share my story through the program I started, the Believe Initiative. And I speak to what I had mentioned before, like, you don't build self-belief through achievements. You build self-belief through action. Because I didn't achieve my goal of making the 2016 Olympics. I didn't achieve my goal of winning a medal at the Rio 2016 Olympics. But I believe in myself more strongly now than I did after the 2012 Olympic experience. And I think it's because I've shown myself that I'm the person who's willing to get back up. Like, I am the person willing to be disciplined and find a way and, like really rely on those soft skills and not those achievements. I don't need to have the title, like whatever it is, I know I'll be the person willing to learn how to do it. And I can now use that going forward in my business with the Believe Initiative and the organization and on and off the track, truthfully. And so I think going through that experience in 2016 has only helped me become more human and be able to share my story in a more impactful way, because I can now relate with every single person in any audience I speak to, because I've been resilient. I've got back up. I've believed in myself so strongly, and I've had the triumphant finish, and I've made the Olympic Games, and it was awesome. But then I've believed in myself so strongly, been so resilient, got back up every single time, and it just didn't work out. But more people come up to me after I share my story and tell me they're more inspired by the time where I didn't make the Olympics over the time where I did. And I think that's because we can all remember our lay in the driveway and fetal position and cry moment. And it may not look like that for everyone, but there's a moment where we felt like things were a waste, where we felt defeated, where we felt deflated. And in those moments, I think I can really connect with people and I can understand what it felt like then. And that's where I think I can stand behind my message of, like, look, you don't have to have achieved everything. You don't have to have won everything. You don't have to have ever been named, the best employee or the best athlete on your team or captain or whatever, because you don't need those titles to be a strong person, to be able to achieve the next goal or the next big thing. And I see that now.
Yeah, I love that. And I excuse me, tell people similar things, because I went to 3 Olympic Games and I won a medal at the first one, and then I failed to medal at the next 2. And, I think it shows you a couple of things. Like you said, I mean, it shows you things about yourself, and you learn things about yourself, and you grow as a person along the way. And I think that's so powerful, because it makes you who you are, and you realize that you could do all these things, even when you don't reach that goal. You can do all these things, but then you also realize there was that time you did reach your goal, and that makes them worth fighting for, because even when you don't, you still grow along the way. I love that. So tell us more about the Believe Initiative, because I was stalking, researching you before we got on air, and I watched some videos about it, and I absolutely love it. And I love hearing the kids say what they have learned from it. So tell us all about the Believe Initiative.
Yeah, so the Believe Initiative was a program founded largely through my experience, where I wanted to go and share my story and create something that would help students build self-belief. And so we go into schools, we talk about the importance of being resilient and the power of believing in yourself. And we run these summit days where we come into a school, we collect schools from one area, bring them to one location. We run kind of presentations with keynotes and workshops and massive group discussions, all to spark students, to help them connect a passion that they love with a problem they want to solve in their community. And then they pursue a passion project with a curriculum we've designed in their classroom following the event. So they come to the event, they are inspired, they're motivated, they connect a passion that they have with a problem they want to solve. And then for 10 weeks in their classroom, they build out that passion project. And at the end of it all, we host an inspiration fair where they then celebrate those projects of whatever their project may be. And to give you an example of a project, we had a student whose passion was shoes. He's like, I love sneakers. I know when Kanye is releasing this and Nike has this and Adidas has that. And so he was like, I understand that, like, the joy I get when I get a brand new pair of sneakers. And I also understand that for those who are less fortunate, they may not be able to afford cool sneakers. And so he connected his passion with shoes with his desire to help the less fortunate in his community. And so he went on the school announcements, got kids to bring in shoes they no longer needed, went door to door in houses nearby, and collected shoes, got sneaker cleaning kits, cleaned them up, and then donated them to a youth shelter for kids who would never be able to afford these like cool shoes.
Oh, so awesome.
Yeah.
So awesome.
And so it's awesome to be part of this thing that will help these students find their skill set. We kind of, the Believe Initiative really has a mission to challenge people to think about, what if you believed you could? What skills would you explore? What passions would you further develop? Because I think as the, world changes in the way of like disruption and nanotechnology and all of those things, the safest bet heading into careers going forward is going to be like, what's unique about you as a person? What are the things that you feel most passionate about, that you feel most strongly about, that are unique to you? Because those are the things we're not going to be able to create and recreate with technology. And so we really want to help these students recognize their unique strengths and challenge them to not be afraid of that just whatever like unique thing that they have might actually be their greatest asset.
That's so cool. And I'm sure that has such a ripple effect. Like, you're affecting all these kids and they're going out and changing the world around them as well. Like, that's so powerful. Now, how can people get involved with the Believe Initiative or find out more about it?
So we have our website, believeinitiative.com. It's a lot of vowels. Be careful of that. And there's a contact us page. They can also follow along on Instagram or Twitter. My handle is Sarah Wells 400mh. Sarah spelled Sarah. Wells is Wells. And 400mh is like 400-meter hurdles. So Sarah Wells 400mh on Twitter and Instagram. And if anyone wants, the program to come to their school or to be an ambassador, that's all found on the website, believeinitiative.com.
Very cool. We'll make sure to link to all of those in the show notes too, so people can just click right to them. And I do have to ask, did you keep training at all after the trials for Rio, or was that official retirement?
So thank you for wrapping that. I totally forgot to mention that. So I decided out of heartbreak to stop training for at least a year in 2017. I did not train, did not race. And that is when I kicked off the Believe Initiative. I launched it that year because I had the time. And since then I have gone back to training, and now I'm juggling both training and running the organization. So it's been a whole new challenge, but it's great. So
wow. So what's next for you?
So at this point, I mean, continuing to grow the Believe Initiative is one of the main goals. And then 2020 in Tokyo is I don't want to say hopefully, that's against my message, right? And I believe 2020 will be the next thing.
Awesome. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for coming on our show, for inspiring us, for teaching us that believing in ourselves is super powerful. We will be sure to follow you and cheer you on your way to Tokyo. Best of luck.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Sarah was such a delight to talk to. I love how she discovered that as she shares her story, it's her experience with immense disappointment after failing to make the Olympic team that resonates so strongly with people. And she's right. We've all had those lay on the driveway and cry moments that have felt like they are going to define us forever. But that's just not true. The success is in believing in yourself enough to try, to be vulnerable with your dreams, and to get out of bed every single day and do your best. And her struggle with identity is real. So many of us believe that our whole self is wrapped up in our performance, and that failure can be devastating on a much deeper level. And if that's you today, then check out the work that Hope Sports is doing to challenge the culture of elite sports. Consider getting involved or even going on a trip with other athletes who are also digging into these profound concepts. And be sure to join us next week as German soccer player Honor Friedrich shares what it's like to compete in front of millions, to survive global scrutiny, and to follow his dreams to compete around the world. I'm your host, Laura Wilkinson. Thanks for listening. This podcast is produced by Evo Terra and Simpler Media. For more information on Hope Sports and to access the complete archives, please visit hopesports.org.